All right, everyone, welcome back. You know I love to geek out over anything tech, and today's deep dive is no exception. We're talking ICT System Architects.
A field with, shall we say, a certain buzz about it these days.
And for good reason, right? I mean, have you seen the salary ranges on these RoleCatcher guides? Someone's thinking about a serious career upgrade. But before we get lost in dollar signs, let's break it down. What does an ICT System Architect actually, do all day?
It's all about seeing the big picture.
Okay, big picture, I like it.
hmm
But how's that different from any other tech role?
Think of it like, an architect designing a building. They're not focused on just one room, right?
Right, they're thinking about how everything fits together, the layout, the flow.
Exactly. An ICT system architect does the same thing, but instead of bricks and mortar, they're working with software, hardware, networks, all those complex systems.
So they're like the masterminds making sure all the tech pieces work in perfect harmony.
That's a great way to put it. RoleCatcher actually uses the analogy of a puzzle, which I kind of like.
Oh, I can see that. Each piece, each system has to fit together perfectly.
And meet specific requirements. Just like a building has to meet fire codes, these systems have to meet security standards, usability requirements, and, making sure it all actually works.
And not just works, but works for the people using it.
Right, exactly. That's where it gets really interesting. Think about something like, say, a banking app.
Okay, seems simple enough on the surface.
Right. But behind that simple interface, there's a whole lot of complexity going on. Data protection, security protocols, and someone has to make sure it all plays nicely together.
That's where our ICT system architect swoops in to save the day.
In a nutshell, they're the ones who keep that chaos organized, making sure the tech solutions actually solve the problems they're designed to solve.
And that takes a certain kind of person, right?
Mhm.
Someone who not only gets the tech stuff, but can also handle the pressure. Because RoleCatcher definitely doesn't shy away from the challenges, let's just say that.
Let's be real, it's not a job for the faint of heart. It takes a very specific skill set.
Tech skills, check. But what else? Spill the tea.
Strong technical foundation is key, obviously. But you also need someone who can think strategically, problem solve on the fly, and perhaps most importantly, communicate effectively.
Ah, so it's not all just coding in a dark room then.
Definitely not. Remember that hospital system project I told you about? We were so focused on getting the technical specs right.
Oh, this is the one where you almost caused a major medical mishap.
Thankfully not. But it was a close call. We almost overlooked how the nurses actually use the system in their day-to-day.
You're kidding.
Nope. All our fancy tech wouldn't have mattered if it made their jobs harder, right?
It's like they say you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't communicate it.
It's useless. And in a field like this, communication is everything. You're working with developers, clients, project managers. It's all about bridging that gap between complex tech and the people who use it every day.
And that, my friends, is where a skilled ICT system architect really shines. And those shines are translating into some serious dollar signs, according to these RoleCatcher guides. Listener, if you're looking for a career that's both in demand and, well, rewarding, this might just be the ticket. But how do you actually get there? It's not just about showing up and saying, hey, I'm a big picture tech person, hire me.
Not quite.
RoleCatcher makes it pretty clear that this isn't your typical 9-to-5 gig.
Understatement of the year. They don't sugarcoat the demands.
Long hours, high stress.
But hey, challenges are what make life interesting, right? What I really want to unpack is the path to becoming an ICT system architect. Because when I see terms like CCNP, Azure Solutions Architect, CISSP all thrown around, I'll be honest, I get a little lost.
It's a lot to digest, I get it. But RoleCatcher does a decent job of laying out a roadmap.
Okay, good. Because I need a map, a compass, maybe even a Sherpa to navigate this terrain. So what are we talking about here? Fancy degrees, hands-on experience, or those alphabet soup certifications? Well, the good news is there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's a bit of everything blended together. RoleCatcher highlights the importance of a solid foundation. They specifically mentioned a bachelor's or a master's degree in a related field.
So hitting the books is still relevant.
Absolutely, but, and this is a big but, practical experience is just as crucial.
Right, because who wants a tech architect who's never actually built anything?
Exactly. Think internships, entry-level IT positions, anything that allows you to get your hands dirty, work with real systems.
And I'm guessing those open source contributions that RoleCatcher keeps mentioning fall under that umbrella too.
100%. It's like building your resume in real time. You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
Right.
And that speaks volumes to potential employers.
Showing, not just telling. I dig it. But what about those certifications? I mean, how do you even know where to start?
Focus on the ones that align with current industry demands. And right now, cloud computing is huge. So certifications like AWS Certified Solutions Architect or Microsoft Azure Solutions Architect are very valuable.
Cloud, cloud, cloud. It's everywhere I turn these days.
For good reason, it's transforming the industry. But here's the thing about tech, and RoleCatcher drives this point home. Even with all the degrees and certifications in the world, the learning never stops.
It's a constantly evolving field.
Which is both exciting and, let's be honest, a little daunting.
So how do you stay ahead of the curve? I mean, what are some of the things you personally do to keep those skills sharp?
Well, for me, it's all about, staying curious. I love diving into new open source projects, experimenting with a different programming language, even just geeking out on tech podcasts like this one keeps the gears turning.
That's awesome. It's that kind of passion that keeps you engaged and ahead of the game.
It's easy to get stuck in a rut, But this field, it's anything but static. Speaking of which, we've talked about the skills, the demands, but let's get down to brass tacks, landing that ICT architect job. And I have to say, RoleCatcher had some really insightful points about the interview process. Like, it's not just about rattling off technical terms. No, not at all. They want to see how you think, how you approach problems, how you would fit into their company culture.
Yeah, they're looking for a cultural fit, for sure. One question that really stood out to me from their list was, how do you ensure ICT systems are easy to use and user-friendly? Which, again, speaks to that human element we keep coming back to.
It's essential. You can have the most technically brilliant system in the world, but if it's a nightmare to use, it's going to fail.
And nobody wants to be responsible for that kind of disaster, right? So how do you even begin to answer that question in a way that shows, you get it?
It's all about demonstrating that you understand the human impact of the work. Talk about your process for gathering user requirements, incorporating feedback, how you prioritize usability from day one.
So it's not just about building a technically sound system, it's about being an advocate for the end user.
Exactly. Emphasize that you're not just building systems for machines, you're building them for people.
And that's such a crucial message, especially in today's tech landscape.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From deciphering those RoleCatcher guides to really understanding what it takes to thrive as an ICT system architect.
It's a challenging field, no doubt, but incredibly rewarding for those with the passion and drive to succeed.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the next big tech innovator, shaping the future of ICT systems.
No doubt.
And on that note, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of ICT system architects. Big thanks to our expert for sharing their insights. And to all our listeners, keep those tech dreams alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.